see at different corners and all the way around the park, and bump outs like the ones in the square reduce the distance that pedestrians have to cross the street and the time that it takes. That's been particularly important for our seniors and for families with young children. We know that making the streets safer for pedestrians makes it go smoother and safer for everyone. These design elements also encourage drivers to slow down as they approach the turns, that increasing the likelihood that drivers and pedestrians will see each other and make eye contact, and decreasing the risk of serious injury from collisions and crashes. So I want to be clear that this doesn't mean that we're going to be pouring concrete, even if it is porous, all over every part of our streets and neighborhoods. We will require that curb extensions incorporate one of the 5 green infrastructure design alternatives. So whether that's a green space, like a rain garden or a tree pit, or porous paving materials, we are committed to not only making our streets safer, but greener and more resilient. And for the volunteer program, we'll be creating opportunities for community members to adopt a specific green infrastructure feature in the city and keep it free from leaves and litter. And again, the city is still maintaining the responsibility and accountability for cleanliness and safety across all our neighborhoods. But one thing that we did hear from the community process was that our residents want to be engaged, want to provide that extra partnership so that 24 hours a day and 365 days a year, we have the best possible results for our community members. This program will be a great way for anyone who wants to give back to our communities to have a sense of pride and ownership in your block and your neighborhood park. It will also serve as an opportunity for residents to learn more about what goes into maintaining all these spaces and give us that feedback as we figure out how to incorporate these in projects all across the city. To that end, the City of Boston will be hosting training programs for residents and staff who are interested in getting involved. We'll be providing certifications that will uniquely qualify individuals to work on green infrastructure construction and maintenance projects in other ways too, so helping further our workforce development pipeline. This volunteer program and the trainings are part of our push to build green jobs in the city and make sure that they stay in Boston for our residents, so that resilience isn't just about safety and beauty, but about the economy and jobs of the future as well. As it becomes increasingly urgent that we build a sustainable future for our kids, for their kids after them, we are committed to creating opportunities for our residents to benefit from this shift to a green economy. And I'm so excited to be taking this step towards making Boston a greener, safer city for all of our residents. And so next up will be our Chief of Streets, pero otra vez en español, primero. Gracias a todos, buenos días. Estamos aquí en el Central Square de East Boston, el sitio de uno de los primeros proyectos de infraestructura verde en la ciudad. Como dijo Kate, nuestra directora de infraestructura verde en Boston, los elementos de diseño de esta plaza dan prioridad a la seguridad y la resiliencia climática. Las extensiones de las bordes de las aceras que permiten un tráfico más seguro y la mayor superficie de parque que crea más espacio verde en esta comunidad de justicia ambiental. Se diseñará en colaboración con nuestros residentes y muchos de nuestros jóvenes se presentaron, aportaron ideas y demostraron el tipo de liderazgo que todos debemos esperar. Hoy estamos anunciando la primera política de infraestructura verde de Boston, estableciendo un nuevo estándar para una infraestructura más segura y sostenible en toda nuestra ciudad. La política tiene 3 partes. 1. Primero, establece 5 nuevos diseños de infraestructura verde, que describirá con más detalle. Segundo, crea 2 nuevos contratos de mantenimiento. Y finalmente establece un programa de voluntariado que invita a nuestras comunidades a ayudar a mantener nuestros espacios verdes limpios y hermosos. En conjunto, estos elementos mejorarán la seguridad de la comunidad e impulsarán la resiliencia climática de Boston. Es urgente que construyamos un futuro sostenible y nos comprometemos
a crear oportunidades para que nuestros residentes se beneficien del cambio a una economía verde. Estoy feliz de poder dar este importante paso para hacer de Boston una ciudad más ecológica y segura para todos nuestros habitantes. Okay, y next, Chief Yasha Franklin Hodge. Oh, I'm so sorry. I messed up my order. I was following the script and not what I had said earlier 5 seconds ago. I'm going to pass it on to our senator and representative first.
Good morning, everyone, or afternoon. I'm not really sure what time it is anymore, but welcome to East Boston. It's the neighborhood I happen to live in, and I'm honored to represent. I am very excited about what this announcement is for not just the city of Boston, but for the region that I also represent. You know, when you think of a greener future and a Green New Deal, it needs to have certain components. One of the major components is it needs to be replicable. And what we just heard from the mayor is that this is setting a blueprint to do throughout all of Boston, and I think actually beyond Boston and other neighborhoods that I represent, such as Winthrop and Revere. I think another component is it needs to be sustainable, not just financially, but that, you know, what we saw is that the rainwater is going to be part of not only getting the water out of our streets, but also feeding and nourishing the trees. So what you see is infrastructure that is truly green supports green life around it as well. And then finally, you know, when you think about what green infrastructure and a Green New Deal needs to be, it just can't be legislation. It just can't be a talking point in D.C. It needs to be real. And therefore, it needs to start from the ground up. And that's what we see literally here from groundwater up, but also because it's going to be informed by the people who are regularly impacted by it, the quality of air that they need to breathe, but also the parks that they want to play in, the way that they're going to drive, how they're going to move as they get older, where they're going to take their kids. All of these things will inform true green infrastructure and really create a deal that all of us can, well, celebrate. And so today I'm just so excited to see how all of those components are actually just micro-sized here in East Boston as a wonderful example. But I expect to see that it's only going to grow throughout. And I want to thank the mayor for fulfilling her promise continually when she talked about doing this and bringing about a Green New Deal. And I'm especially excited that she started a lot of that infrastructure here in East Boston. So I want to thank her entire team. So many people who are, you know, I don't want to mess up and not name the correct people, but I also want to acknowledge a former East Boston resident who also helped with the design and traffic here, was Gina Fandaka, who was part of the transportation department. And she is also part of this legacy as well. And I just wanted to make sure we called out her as well. So thank you so much for being here.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adrian Madro, proud to be the state rep here in East Boston. And I actually grew up just a few blocks up the hill here. I remember well what Central Square used to look like. It certainly didn't have as much green and trees. It was quite dangerous for pedestrians, dangerous for cars, kind of a chaotic situation with traffic. And this has really helped transform this square. But what I did forget about the rehab of the square was all the incredible details of green infrastructure. So I just ask you all to join me in a round of applause for Kate England, because I feel like I went to school today and I learned a lot. And it was really cool to get such a in-depth, deep understanding of just what's happening here. And I do think it's fitting that the city used Central Square in East Boston to pilot this green infrastructure. We are an environmental justice community. We do have one of the lowest tree canopies in the city of Boston. So when you hear things, as Kate was explaining, like the underground wells that nourish our trees, this alley or alley of trees, and how much larger they are in relation to the trees in the park, it's critical for East Boston. For a community that suffers disproportionately from air pollution and other environmental impacts, it's critical that we have good, healthy trees, strong, vibrant, open spaces, because that's how we can have the best quality of life for ourselves and our neighbors. And I want to credit Mayor Wu and her team for taking the Green New Deal or green infrastructure from a talking point and into reality. Yes, we're highlighting green infrastructure pilots here, but this is just the beginning. And I think the announcement of this new green infrastructure policy really marks an exciting moment for Boston's history, because while these were pilots, this is what we can start to expect from here on out in East Boston and across the city. And that will just be an enormous benefit to our residents here in the city. So thank you to the mayor and her team. And without further ado, we'll turn it over to the Chief of Streets, Yasha Franklin Hodge.
Thank you, Representative, and I want to just start by thanking the Mayor for her leadership on this initiative and so much more when it comes to the sustainability and of our city and the things that we can do in our streets. Kate England, as others have mentioned, is instrumental in building this policy and bringing all of this new work to light. And many other departments. So the people of the Streets Cabinet that I lead, who were involved in designing over many years this project here in Central Square, who helped to keep it maintained and in good condition, and then the many other departments that are involved in what we have today and what we're going to build in the future: Boston Water and Sewer, the Environment Department, New Urban Mechanics. This has truly been a cross-departmental team effort, both to build some of the things that we see today as well as what's planned in the future. So the implementation of these new design standards reinforces that our streets are spaces for everyone. As we work to make streets safer by reducing speeding and improving crossings for pedestrians, we can also add more green spaces to our neighborhoods. We can beautify places that were previously concrete and asphalt and help make Boston a more resilient city. Traffic calming measures like curb extensions and bump outs are key to reducing speeding and preventing injuries and deaths on our roadways. When we can slow down cars, we improve, and when we improve sightlines for drivers and pedestrians, we're reducing the distance that people need to cross the street. This is what keeps our streets safe. This is what helps people feel comfortable as they move about our city and know that they can do so without fear of injury. So today in Central Square, we're seeing a place that underwent improvements that were designed to both create a safer, more functional traffic pattern, to improve pedestrian access into the park. We reclaimed much of the pavement for pedestrians. The places that we're all standing now was road prior to this project. And we've allowed for many of those safety benefits to be felt by all, both people who are coming here to use this park and people who are passing through here on their way somewhere. But these improvements weren't only for traffic safety. This park here in Central Square contains 11 stormwater management features like porous paving materials, tree trenches. These are projects that demonstrate what's possible in dense urban environments as we seek to prevent flooding, to keep pollutants out of our waterways, and just to enhance the quality of the public space that we enjoy. So using the new design standards that we're announcing here today, every future project, big and small, creates an opportunity to implement green infrastructure elements on our city streets. This investment will create spaces that better serve neighborhoods with new trees, vegetated landscapes, stormwater management, and flooding prevention. In the Streets Cabinet, we are committed to improving the quality of life for residents in Boston with safer streets, but we are equally committed to being thoughtful about how we create spaces that not only establish better experiences for pedestrians and cyclists, but also address other pressing needs in our community, like creating shade, like managing stormwater, and addressing and mitigating some of the impacts we are seeing and will continue to see from climate change. Boston has 800 miles of streets and sidewalks. They are our largest public space, and they can do a lot more than just move people from A to B. As we make our streets safer, we will also make them greener, we will make them more comfortable, we will make them more inviting, and we will make them more sustainable. So thank you very much. Very excited for this announcement. And I'm going to turn it over now back to Kate England, our Director of Green Infrastructure, who's going to talk through some of the policy details that we are announcing today. So, Kate.
Hello, everyone. Once again, my name is Kate England, and I'm the inaugural Green Infrastructure Director for the City of Boston. My role exists because our mayor believed that it was essential to have people whose primary focus was climate resilience and thinking about how we can make small changes to the everyday activities in our city to make our city more resilient. My experience in this field is that it's easy to feel saddened and to feel that sense of dread when you think about climate resilience and about the impacts of climate and what's coming. And one of the reasons that I love green infrastructure so much is because installing green infrastructure features is a physical, tangible thing that we can do that really makes a difference and makes our cities more resilient. So for those of you who are here today and watching at home, you've probably been hearing the words green infrastructure more and more often over the last few months, or at least I hope you have been. And so you may be wondering, what is green infrastructure? What are green infrastructure features? So fundamentally, green infrastructure features are stormwater management features that mimic nature. They use plants and soil and other materials to help stormwater to just absorb back into the ground. So they also have other benefits, stormwater benefits, like they help to reduce localized flooding, and they help to improve water quality. But they have benefits that go beyond stormwater. They also allow us to build green spaces back into our cities. They frequently have trees in them, so they allow us to increase our urban tree canopy and reduce urban heat island effect. They also have a lot of physical and psychological health benefits. They improve air quality because of all the vegetation, and they allow urban dwellers access to green space in densely developed cities. So with all of these benefits in mind, we are so thrilled to be announcing the city's first green infrastructure policy, which will require the implementation or incorporation of green infrastructure into city projects that have curb extensions and bump outs. So you've already heard from everyone before me about the value of curb extensions and how they're used. They are used for slowing down traffic, for shortening pedestrian crossings, and generally increasing safety. But currently, we typically take that space within the bumped out curb and we pave it with concrete or asphalt or pavers. And the intent of this policy is to expand green infrastructure implementation throughout the city by allowing our designers and project managers and engineers to choose from one of 5 green infrastructure design alternatives when they are doing their designs. The policy, as the mayor mentioned, has 3 primary components. The first is those 5 design alternatives, which I'll talk about in just a second. The second is that there will be 2 green infrastructure maintenance contracts that will be available to perform maintenance on public green infrastructure features. And the third is the volunteer program, which we obviously are all very excited about. So going to quickly describe the 5 design alternatives. For those of you who walked around the park, apologies, some of this will be repetitive. But the first design alternative is right-of-way bioretention. And what that means is that we are going to be able to install rain gardens and bioswales into that area within the bumped out curbs. So using vegetation and plants to help bring in stormwater and remove pollutants and allow it to absorb back into the ground. The second design alternative are infiltrating tree trenches or tree pits. If you look around you in Central Square, we are surrounded by tree trenches. They have 2 main pieces to them. There's a large stone subsurface area, and then they also have trees planted in them. The stone area allows water to absorb back into the ground, but it also provides much needed water and air to tree roots to help the trees survive and thrive. The third design alternative is porous paving materials. That could be porous asphalt, permeable pavers, which are pavers that are themselves porous, or porous paver installations, which are solid pavers that are installed with gaps in between them so stormwater can get back into the ground in between those gaps, or porous concrete. And again, you can see all of those different types of porous paving materials around Central Square. The fourth design alternative are subsurface infiltration areas. These are very similar to the tree trenches, except they don't have trees planted in them, and frequently have perforated pipe that helps stormwater get from our streets and sidewalks down into the stone area so it can absorb into the ground. And the fifth design alternative is an option to just one-time seed. Rather than putting in concrete or asphalt, you can take that space and you can seed it with a low-growing ground cover or maybe a pollinator wildflower mix so that you create wonderful pollinator habitat in your neighborhoods. So the policy also has 2 operational components, those 2 maintenance contracts that you've heard mentioned a couple of times. The first is a regenerative air vacuum sweeping contract. As I described on the walk, that's a fancy machine that rather than just brushing up dirt and litter, it has a vacuuming component so it can remove dirt and other small particles from our porous paving materials. And the second maintenance contract is a landscape maintenance contract, which will be used to maintain all of that vegetation that we're going to be planting in the right-of-way and also provide much-needed tree maintenance and pruning services. And the last component of the policy is our volunteer program. We are really excited about this program because it will allow residents from the city of Boston to adopt a green infrastructure feature in the city. Volunteers will be able to do litter removal and weeding and plant plants when the features need it. And our hope is that by allowing our neighborhood residents to be involved in caring for these features, that they will feel a sense of pride and stewardship and really help to make sure that these green infrastructure features survive and thrive in our city. Before I close, I just want to do two quick shout outs. First, I want to shout out Nayeli Rodriguez, who's over here, and the MONUM team and the Environment Department. Thank you so much for continuing the green infrastructure conversation while I was gone. We would not be here if it were not for your work. And secondly, I want to thank the Public Works and Boston Transportation staff for listening to me seemingly endlessly talk about this policy for the last month, and for showing just real enthusiasm and interest in learning about green infrastructure. I'm really looking forward to implementing this policy with you over the next several months and years. So anyway, with that, I know we have allotted time for questions. So at this time, I'm going to invite the mayor and Chief Franklin Hodge to come back up to the podium and join me to help answer some questions. Thank you, everyone.
Amazing, amazing. I'm going to add 3 more shout outs. We could do a lot more, but just in terms of team members who've been very involved with this, I see our Environment Commissioner, Allison Brizius, is here. Thank you. Our Director of Policy and Planning for the Transportation Department, Vineet Gupta, thank you. And someone with many hats, but we're very excited that now he is back as a senior advisor for infrastructure projects across the city, Chris Osgood. Okay, what questions do you all have? Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.